All right. So this month we are talking about how to re-engage our members, and I'm looking forward to a super great discussion. And Judy, I think you have something prepared for us.
Oh, sure. Very casual. Okay, let me just see if I can figure out how to share my screen with you all. Okay, great. So what I wanted to do today is just kind of tell you a little bit about what Chaortix does, and then I can basically tell you who I am as well. So what is Chaortix and who's Judy? And so, yeah, I just wanted to say thank you also to CMX for hosting and hosting the discussion. As we kind of said earlier, re-engagement of community members is a really, is kind of just like the never-ending topic, especially for us. We find that we circle back to this discussion topic really frequently. So what is Chaortix? Who is Chaortix? Chaortix is a Calgary-based company. We're Canadian. We have over 10 years of experience building powerful community software. We host branded innovation communities that for companies, fans, customers, and employees. So any sort of brands or organizations want to have a place online, we build the software to allow them to do that. So our communities provide that always-on connection for brands to reach their members. And on top of our platform, we also do kind of the community management for a large number of our clients. So that's where I come in, and a number of people on my team. We sort of act as our clients within their communities, and we coordinate with them to make sure that the community is functioning the way that they want it to. And you can see kind of the logo slide on the right-hand side, just some of our clients that we're working with right now. From more kind of like consumer-focused brands like Rust-Oleum, Dremel, and like Damon Motorcycles is a new Canadian company that we're working with, to more of a like corporate type of environment for some like employee types of communities. So for like KPMG, HP, HSBC, I'll throw in some more acronyms in there as well. And then Lego is kind of our our banner client. We've hosted the Lego Ideas platform for a really, really long time. And it's something that we're really proud of too. So, so who am I? I've been at Chaortix for 5 years. I'm a community success manager. I manage communities for clients like Dremel, Rust-Oleum, worked with KPMG, HTC, and Lego in the past, in the last couple of years that we've been working together. I actually started my career working in technology startups, mostly on kind of the operations and marketing side of things, and kind of fell into the role of community management, and just really fell in love with it. I have a Bachelor of Commerce degree from the U of C here in Calgary, and I'm BC born and raised. So I actually moved back to my hometown to start a family and work remotely about 4 years ago. So I like to say that I was working remotely before it was cool, and it's been a really fun ride so far. On the personal side of things, so professionally, those are the communities that I work with. Personally, I'm a barbershop singer, so that's like my nerdy hidden secret talent, is I like to sing 4-part harmony, but Sweet Adelines is kind of an international community or organization that I'm a part of. I'm a terrible CrossFitter, but I really enjoy it. And if you know anything about CrossFit, you know that people will talk about it, and the community side of CrossFit is also really strong. So interesting to draw some of those parallels between my professional and personal life. I also play hockey, so I'm Canadian, why not? And my son is almost 2, so I have joined a couple of mom groups as well. So those are kind of my personal communities that I work with. And so now that's it. That's all you get from me. But I want to just open the floor for discussion about re-engaging your community and re-engaging those community members that sometimes fall off the face of the earth, whether it's a real life in-person community, or maybe they've disappeared after COVID, and maybe it was, there could be a myriad of reasons why people why engagement tends to drop. So I'm just gonna open the floor for discussion. I think we have a few questions already that are ready to go, and yeah, we'll go from there.
Okay, you want to unshare your screen?
Totally.
And so I'll do the first question. And
yeah, perfect.
What's the number one thing that you like to use? What strategy you like to use to re-engage with members?
I think for us, and I guess I'm totally just speaking to my experience at Chaortix and some of my even personal experience with community management. But the number one thing that I think is important to remember is that every community member is an individual person, right? We are all individuals. Every community member has a different reason for joining the community. They have a different reason for participating. So I think the most important thing to keep in mind is that there isn't a one size fits all solution. And depending on the people that are in your community and why they have come to it in the first place, you kind of have to put yourself in their shoes, I think, to understand why they were attracted to join in the first place, and maybe why it has become a place that they're not interested in anymore. For us, a number of our communities are kind of like creative or like project focused. So we're working with people that are like really into crafting and painting and creating and making. And some people join our communities when they have a project that they're working on and need assistance with it. And then after that, they're less interested, or they might still be interested, but their participation kind of drops off. And so we see that often in some of the communities that we work with, or even in like Lego, for example. If you know much about Lego fans and like AFOLs, they're super fans, but the participation in the community environment, it ebbs and flows. Like they come and, I don't know, submit an idea for a Lego set, and then they're motivating their network to participate and vote for them, and then participation drops off, and then they drop off, but they come back months later because they have a new idea or whatever. So I think, yeah, making sure that you understand that not one strategy is going to work for all community members, and that maybe there's like even just a cyclical nature to the community in general, right? Anybody have any other opinions on that? I'm also open to other ideas too. So let's have that open discussion.
My thoughts are pretty similar to yours, to be honest. One thing that we find is, it's less about re-engaging people who were engaged, but more about sort of people who come to the community. They're interested, but they don't quite find what they're looking for, so they don't become super engaged. But in a lot of cases, it's because, we didn't have what they were looking for at the time. We didn't have discussions on what they were interested in, or they really wanted to participate in some way. They wanted to be involved in some kind of leadership program, but we didn't have the kind of format that suited them. But as the community grows and we do more things with it, then we open up new responsibilities, new discussion forums, and that kind of thing. And so down the line, we might well have what they're interested in. And so when somebody, like, I'm trying to think of an example to make this a little bit clearer, but so for example, I work for Corsair. It's an ed tech platform. So we have courses, and we have people who are trying to learn new things, and we have a lot of very, very helpful people who want to help other people learn new things. But we initially had a program that we needed people to be kind of proactive. They were supposed to be starting discussions in the forums, and they were supposed to be like providing tips and answers or sharing articles that they found around the internet about the subject. But what we discovered was that some people really wanted to help, but they wanted to be much more reactive. They just wanted to answer other people's questions, right? So we initially didn't have a program for those people. But then as we sort of adjusted the format of the community to make that Q&A more accessible, then we suddenly have a fit for those people. And so they can engage in the way that they want to.
Totally. Yeah, I think it's important to note know that if you don't have what they need right at that moment, that doesn't mean that they've disappeared off the face of the earth and they aren't keeping tabs on things, or might not come back later on. So that's cool. Peter, I see your question in the chat. How do you track community drop off? For us at Chaortix, we are looking at, like, we can kind of tell from participation rates. Obviously, we can tell when users, if they haven't logged in a while into our platforms. If you are more of a in-person type of community, you would know when people don't show up to events and stuff. So I think keeping track of those types of things, and also understanding that it's not bad if people are just like logging in and not participating. In our platform, we call them the lurkers, but I know they have less negative sounding names in other software platforms. And I think Carrie Melissa Jones has a better name for them, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. But we do track participation in our platform, and so we can tell when people, like, when their participation ebbs and flows, and and also keeping tracks of things like if you're sending out email newsletters, like open rates and click-through rates and that kind of stuff, you can, if you, depending on how it's set up, you can really track who's coming back and forth into your community. And depending on the tools that you have available to you, for sure. But we always have new people coming in as well, right? So it's kind of just a cycle of the community membership.
Couple things for Peter. Curious what software you use, and alerting everyone that community tools are going gangbusters these days. So watch out for those. And then I'm also curious, Peter, if you already measure metrics right now, like what metrics you use, because each community has different ways to track their progress.
Yeah, we are mainly on Slack and GitHub. And so we started just recently doing Orbit and trying to pipe some of the metrics in and to kind of analyze it. So we have probably like 5,000 people in the Slack channel, but maybe like 150 or 200 people who actually participate at least once a week. So it's like, it's a very low number of them. And yeah, so I was just and so the metrics are very brand new as well. So it's also hard to see like, oh, well, everything just kind of looks dormant.
No, I mean, don't forget about, what is it, like the 80-20 rule? Or, I mean, you can break the percentages down a little bit further than that, but it's always, you're going to have a smaller percentage that is actually active, right? And that's not a bad thing. That's just the nature of the beast and how it shakes out.
Thank you. Jen, you want to ask your question?
Sure, I guess I asked two there, so for Crisis Text Line, we use Mighty Network as our platform for our community, and kind of like Peter, like you were saying, like we have like almost 30,000 people in our network, but only a smaller percentage are engaged because people have no longer volunteers. So they're all volunteers and staff, and I'm just trying to figure out ways, like our network, like I'm cleaning it up to make it an easy space based on community, fun, and learning, right? So those things are where my three things that I'm driving. I'm just trying to figure out ways of engaging with them, and I see a lot of people wanting to connect either on their own, in different meetups based on their location, but also me as this, the engagement specialist here, it's really bringing like my face to the community. I guess it's weird. It sounds weird. I'm like this odd celebrity, but what I'm trying to do is develop a way, like what kind of event. I know the community or the learning aspects, I got it. Mental health field, got that, right? But just regarding the fun and the engagement building there is really where I'm to come up with some strategies around that. So I was just curious. Also subgroups. If anyone in the communities, if you have subgroups, because we have like a ton of different groups. So we have like arts and crafts. I'm trying to post every week to keep them engaged, but it's draining. I'm not a gamer, but I just post crap in there. Like the kids, I'm like, what's the hottest game? Has anyone played this? You know, so I'm just trying to figure out ways to create that. So
for sure. That's a big community to manage too, as well. Like to keep all of those people engaged. You're not going to find one thing that drives them all back in, but I love the idea of finding the different pockets and the different groups, and maybe it's a matter of figuring out which ones need a little bit more nurturing and which ones, like, could you find like your could you find like the champions or like the super fans or whatever in those little subgroups to kind of take charge and take the lead. I find sometimes too, if you can I don't know, giving somebody responsibility seems like a lot of things, but it doesn't necessarily need to be that. Like if you see that there's a sort of a champion or somebody or a leader that's emerging, give them the power to say, hey, do you want to start a conversation on a weekly basis? Or can you take this on for me? Because I'm not a gamer, or I'm not into cats, or whatever the conversation might be. Yeah. And I think that's cool.
Our pets topic is the most engaging topic of all of our topics.
100%.
Except for my get to know questions. But yeah, I like that idea. We used to hire our volunteers on a 6-month stipend to help moderate. But so I like the way that you presented it, like those super users, because we do have a lot of people who love to engage. So I just need to figure out how to get into them. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, and see if you can. I mean, it doesn't need to be super formal, right? Like it could just be you just kind of know who those people are. I think at least in my experience, that people just kind of shake out, like sort of rise to the top if they're really engaged and understand that it might only be a short-term commitment. Like maybe you have them do it for a couple months and then trade off, or I don't know. But yeah, you can't hurt to ask, right? For sure. Also, I think it's great that you're like the face of the community. I think it's nice to have so I work with Lisa, full disclosure. She is the face of a couple of our communities at Chaortix, and we often refer to her as kind of the host of the party. So it's just kind of somebody that everybody knows and recognizes, and somebody to go to with questions, or, you know.
I often refer
you kind of have to have that.
Of crisis text. That's why I like to refer to myself. Anyway, thank you. I might stop, but thank you so much.
Oh yeah, no worries. That's great. Thanks for joining us. Are there more questions in the chat?
Yeah, there's some good questions and good discussion in the chat.
I think you can skip mine. I think you already answered it, so never mind.
Okay. Perfect. Cool. I think too, sorry, is it Elisa or Alyssa? Okay. Cool. I agree. I think if you want to find out why people have left the community, a survey is probably a great idea, like a great way to do that. It depends on how large the community is. If it's a smaller group and you have time to reach out to people individually, then sometimes that personal touch can help get a response. But in some of our larger communities, we have definitely sent out private messages and see if it helps, see if people will respond and interact, and other times, don't let your feelings get hurt if nobody responds. But I think, yeah, a survey would be a good place to start, and then see what the responses are. And most of the time, the answers might just be that it's not a fit for them right now. We sometimes see people sort of fall off, and then they come back randomly. They've been keeping an eye on things, or they've been receiving our emails, or we like obviously within the Chaortix platform, we give people the chance to like unsubscribe or turn off their notifications or whatever. So that's up to them how much they want to engage with us, but we assume that everybody wants to listen to what we say, so we never stop sending them information. And I think based on some of the stuff Jen too with some of the subgroups and like sub-communities, if you know that you have something going on that is going to be interesting for people within some of those subgroups or like a smaller subset of your larger community, then let them know that it's happening. Like maybe they just don't even know, or need a reminder that something interesting or an interesting discussion that they're really interested in, or that they have, you know, noted that they might be interested in something is totally legit for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I think if you aren't already using some kind of additional tool outside of the community platform, like that's obviously a great way to make sure people come back. If you have another channel like email, or if you have them on social media, you can reach out to them through there. Like I mean, it depends on the quality of the community platform. Obviously, if you're using something like Slack, which sends out email notifications anyway, and maybe it's too many and people have turned them all off, right? But even then, like if they've turned off all of their notifications from Slack, then but you have a mailing list, you can reach them that way as well. Kind of people, I mean, you don't want to spam people, obviously, but it's a busy world. People just, they want to participate. They just got busy and they forgot about it. Or, you know, we had somebody, we did a survey recently, and we had someone who joined the community, was super excited to participate. And then like only a month later had completely forgotten that the community existed, that she'd ever joined it, like, and then found it again and was like, wow, this is amazing. So yeah, sometimes people are very grateful for getting those messages via other channels.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's always different ways to communicate with people. I'm curious to know what other platforms folks here are using, or a few mentioned.
My community, we have a few different ones. One of them's on Slack. We were using Insided. We have just migrated over to Salesforce. I still absolutely love Insided, would highly recommend them. It was more of a bigger company decision to move to Salesforce. But I don't have any feedback on Salesforce because we've literally just launched. And then we also have a forum tool that was built in-house for all of our courses. So kind of a bit of a mess.
Feel free to put your platforms on the chat because there's a bunch of us. And I want to input to Jen and another person about tech community. So my first community was a volunteer community for tech startup and design people. And I learned a lot about identifying my early super users, super fans, and making friends with them and asking them to co-create with me. Because I'm like, I don't know what to do next. And then I just talk to people. I want to do 1, 2, 3. Which one do you think? Any ideas? And then I'll say, because it's volunteer, I'm like, hey, would you post that for me? Because I didn't want to be the only one engaging with everyone. If I have to continuously remind everyone this is the reason why we do meetups, because we want to learn about how to build apps or build startups. So help me do this because I can't do this by myself. So a little guilt, a little one-on-one discussion, and then we do surveys, that kind of stuff. And I studied engineering, but I'm not a tech person. But those super fans, I ended up finding business. Some of them, they were CEOs of software development companies. So they became my business partners and they became the geek face of our community. So that was kind of like the in. So I just like instigate and facilitate and then get all the right people together. And then Megan has a question. I don't know if she's still on. Do people refer to their community life cycle or journey to find the drop-offs and build re-engagement upsell?
Good question. I think we don't as much as we should, maybe, which is something I guess to keep in mind. But I suppose it would also depend on the type of community that you're running. If it is sort of like product based or mostly customers, and you know where they are on that curve or on that journey, then that would give you that opportunity for sure. For us, we don't often know where people are on that curve, so it's a little different to try and manage that. But if you have that information, I think that would be like really incredible to leverage for sure, because that just gives you more data points and more sort of like timestamps as to, okay, they've dropped off here. We can bring more information that's relevant to them based on where they are in that life cycle. So yeah, I don't know. Does anybody else have any thoughts about that specific question, or seeing that in your day-to-day stuff that you're managing?
Actually, for me, I'm more very, because it's hard. There's a lot of metrics you can track. And as a community manager, I want to be super selfish and think about what's important to me and what's important to the company sponsor. So for us, sustainability and revenue generation was important because it was a nonprofit. So I always have that in mind. What's the business goal and what's the metrics that I can track in order for me to accomplish the business goal? And those are the ones, like I do 5 to 10 or just 5 metrics that I track regularly. Is this serving me? And if I see a drop off, then that's what I address, as opposed to customer journey, because it's too like abstract for me. Sorry, that's the way I work. Does that make sense?
It does for me, for sure. Yeah, not everything's going to work for everybody, right? And that goes for community members, but also for community managers. Like some things just won't apply based on what the purpose of your community is and why people have joined in the first place.
Yeah, I think like customer lifecycle information could be really interesting, as Judy said, depending on the goals of your community. But if you can slice and dice, like people at this stage in the life cycle are participating, people at this stage in the life cycle are not. And then if you also identify that actually that's a stage in the life cycle that you want people to participate more, then that helps you sort of target strategies to people who are at that stage and figure out what is it they want from the community that the community isn't providing. But yeah, it really comes back to what you're trying to achieve, if that makes sense or not.
Totally. Like if you had a community that was support based, for instance, then you want people to come in when they need help, and you want them to not, you actually want them not to be there, to be honest, because you don't want them to need help all the time, right? But if they did need support or needed questions answered, then they would come back in, and you would want to see that drop off, that they solved the problem that they had. So
I have a follow-up question on that, Judy. You said you, on a customer support community, you wouldn't necessarily want your members to be back all the time because that's like a bad sign.
Maybe, I don't know.
But wouldn't you want some to be there so they can be experts and super users and stuff?
For sure. Yeah, totally. And I think therein lies the rest of the answer to that question. But there's definitely different roles that you would want people to play. But if you have those roles defined as those sort of like subgroups, so maybe it's a product support thing, so you have those experts or super users that can come back and answer the questions, then you have things for them to do all the time. But for sort of the person that's just joining to get their problem solved, then maybe you want to convert them to a product expert down the line, and so you have to nurture that relationship and that person.
Right.
Yeah, but I think
Yeah.
if you're looking at the metrics kind of across the whole community, unless you have a relatively small community, what you probably find is that because you have like a huge proportion of the community is the people seeking help, and then a very, very small proportion of the community is the people giving help, the metrics overall will only show the people seeking help, right? And then you have to track that smaller group separately. You have to like have a super user program and know how many people are active within that like tiny program. Looking at the metrics as a whole, like is very much what Judy said. Like if people are hanging around and coming back over and over again, you probably got big problems with your product.
With your community, that would be a larger organizational problem for maybe. I don't know. I'm just totally speculating and just guessing, but yeah, I think it would depend on the objective of the community is going to help determine what you want people to do.
I want to like give someone like one of my experience. I manage like a community of 2,000 people. We are a paid community, same as like Corsair. It's the same market fit. And one thing that we understand that it was very, very like helpful is people have have a time with us as a community managers. So we provide like a tutorial, and they have like 15-minute call with us. We understand their goals, we understand their routine, we provide some tips to them, and this helps us a lot, like to how to engage people, because we have a new members coming every day, and they make like, oh, I made the tutorial, it was fantastic, the girls provide us a study plan and all these things, and the older members like, oh, I must like to make my appointment and like things like that. One another thing that helped us a lot was the advocate program. We selected like some people, like around 9 people, that is they are like our member, like the core member, the biggest target. So we start to like give them like some small gifts. So the first one will be in this Saturday. We have like an English class, because we are Brazilians, we speak only Portuguese. So we are going to provide like a very quick class about how to handle in English things for daily. And we selected all the like 90 people, more like the ranking program, to be part of these 2 first classes. So it's an exclusive event for them. So we start to build like things like small gifts that we understand, and that's going to rebuild the trust, the confidence about them with us, and then with the other members. So they help us. Sometimes I have like four groups I manage, like in WhatsApp, Telegram, and other platforms, and they can help us a lot sometimes, because sometimes we are not online, and they say, oh, I have a problem with this, and one member say, and the one advocate member say, oh, you can help, we can do this, and this one thing that makes me sometimes feel very happy about our job is because they are help us, and they are helping like Reengaging these new members that sometimes, oh, I just click in the button, I just pay it, and that's it. But sometimes they understand what is the meaning about our community, what is the point about our community. So there was some actions that made us like feel like very comfortable about our communities, but we have like the bigger problem about how to track. I have been doing like some very crazy things to handle about tracking non-engaging members, but we are still figuring out what we're going to do and what's the next movements and next step we're going to do.
Thanks for sharing that, Camille. That's great. It's nice to get some exposure to what other community managers are doing and different approaches that people are taking, because there's, you know, there's never one right solution. There's always a ton of different ways to try and do it. So that's cool.
Questions? Anyone else? Piper?
Yeah, Lisa asked
everything.
about rewards. Rewards? Yeah, I thought that was a good topic for discussion.
That's
yeah,
true.
I'm just curious who uses incentives and what they are, and do you find them motivating for people?
Yeah.
So I run a craft group, and I will sometimes do a competition where I'll say to people, respond in the comments in some kind of way, and your name goes into a lucky draw. And then they receive either a design to download or an ebook or something like that. So it's digital creative content.
Awesome. Yeah, we through like our Chaortix communities, we often encourage our clients to provide incentives, and that can be anything from like physical things. So if we're working with a client that actually has a product that they can give away, they do lots of that, or like gift cards and stuff for prizes. We also love to do, I think it's kind of a standard, but we love to do kind of like the surprise and delight things. So just like if we send people something that's send them a t-shirt or a little gift pack or just a thank you for being an active participant. Like if you have that in the budget, that's awesome. And it doesn't have to be a physical thing, and it doesn't have to be expensive either. Again, like within our platform, we can award things like little badges. We can give people points, but you could, I don't know, customize people's profile photos or create a special gift for them. Like it doesn't, the amount of work that needs to go into something to make somebody feel special and sort of appreciate their participation, like you can do that pretty easily. So it's nice to be able to encourage people. And then from specifically thinking of it from like a re-engagement perspective, if we are trying to, say you did want to find out why people had left the community or why participation has dropped, and you're doing a survey to do that, you might want to offer an incentive just to encourage. Like we always typically find that if we provide an incentive to people to complete a survey, then our participation and completion rates are higher. So we'll typically do that. We do it pretty regularly in a number of our communities, but especially with things like our annual survey where we want to see like information from quite a number of users, provide like a little gift card or a product prize or whatever the case may be. In Melanie's case, that might be a cool exclusive download or something fun just for those people. So that never hurts to provide that.
I'll just share that in one of the communities I'm in, we have a really tough time engaging this group of people. No, they're engaged, but they just do not participate at all. They're total crickets. So we tried the incentive route, and that was actually not at all motivating for them, and a couple of people refused it. And so what we're finding actually works a lot better now is reaching out to them and getting them to participate in little member spotlights, and so they get profiled within the community, and that's a much better motivation for that group of people. So it is really interesting, and they're, as Judy said, everyone's completely different, and you just kind of have to find what works in any particular situation.
The power of dopamine works.
Mm-hmm.
Using these bad tricks that they use to get us all addicted. It as a way to encourage good habits. That's one of the things I learned when I joined this Ship 30 writing course. It's ridiculous because it works. You know, you mention people's names and everybody loves it.
Totally.
So I have a group that grew in a viral way because in the early days when it grew very quickly, I got so excited that every time it happened, I would eat chocolate and I'd take a picture and then declare it Chocolate Day. And that got us like really far. Then we started having people give us some pushback because of the diabetics and chocolate is not good for orangutans and all of that. So we had to rebrand it as a celebration day, but we still do it when we reach landmarks in our growth. And because we're a textile group, we eat treats and we share bunting that we've made from recycled textiles, and we share pictures of hearts that we've made from recycled textiles. And we have this whole cyber celebration. We've even got songs. We've declared the Wombles song our international anthem. So I can attest to that, Tina, that definitely. I thought about it the other day. I think I did grow that group on chocolate.
That's amazing. I would like to add chocolate as a budget line item for our next community. Chocolate and snacks.
Great idea.
Yeah, that'll work well for me. That's so great. Cool. I think it was Camille in the chat where you said that you use your community as like a little experiment. You like to experiment with your community members.
Yeah. I am Melanie. We are like fellows, and she knows that I'm very continuous talking like this. But my community is like my life science. I love to experiment things and build new things. So every month, I already work same as you, Judy. I work in the tech companies for like since 2018. So the culture about like experiments is very familiar to me. And when I understand that I can do this in my community, the things like the possibility is very real about getting crazy. So I try new things about how can we implement like a good routine for my members study and get a very good they can implement the things in their work and their lives. This is one of my the question that I make every time. And we implement very things about like routine, about like health, mental. So this month, especially in Brazil, we are calling like Yellow September. That is about the mental care and suicide discussions. So we are trying to promote like things about how they can have like a leisure time, how can relax and not can like keep me focused too much about study, and have like a good time, watch on Netflix or whatever. So we are looking for what they're like the ideal topics, or what they are looking for in our community, and we try to match the things about how to experiment. So yes, I really like to experiment things. Some things is not very good. I already made like a happy hour last month, and the way that the ending about the event was not that good enough. So we are trying to see what we can fix for the next time we can like implement the new things. So I believe that is a part. Yesterday I was in the event about with Jono here in the CMX, and I was thinking that be experimental in our communities maybe is one of the strengths and one of the hard, also soft skills that we can build for our communities, not only for us but for them. Because when you can experiment things and see that, oh, maybe this is not going well, we can fix up, we can build new things, you're trying to model a better thing. I always thinking about how can I implement and how can I build one thing that can be better and better and better and better. So this is my mindset for the things that I do.
That's an awesome philosophy. You just try something. If it doesn't work, you try something else. And if it does work, you keep doing it until it doesn't work anymore. I think there's nothing wrong with that. It's especially when we're doing things mostly digitally right now. It's like, well, the internet is so fleeting. Everything kind of passes. There's so much stuff. So there's no reason to not try different things on a regular basis. I think that's an awesome strategy.
Also, sometimes we forget. Remember, we're community builders, and one of the beautiful things that happens is people connect with each other and be best friends for life, right? We have to remember that of ourselves, that we're not the only one in the community, that we should facilitate the one-on-one connection so that it's, my personal hashtag is better together. So when I built my nonprofit from one event, I learned to bring people into my network and like to my personal space and co-create with them. And it became not just me, then there's the community grew from that. That's one thing I loved about community building is it wasn't hard for me after about a year or so, because I had supported people around me who, you know, matched with my values and believed in what we were trying to do. So always, because it's a very difficult job we do. It's so, you could get burned out if you don't pay attention. So make sure you thrive yourself as a person so that your community thrives, and ask for help.
Yeah, I think we definitely fall into that. I'm guilty of that too. And maybe because it is like, that's my primary job responsibility is these communities. So I'm sort of lucky in that way, but also it's easy to forget that there's other stuff going on too. So you don't have to take it all to heart. So.
You can become a metric. Once you have fans and super users, they become volunteers. How many volunteers do you have? That becomes a metric. And we hired some of the super volunteers that we have, so it works for them too.
Yeah, why not?
I have something I just thought of, and it may not be related to this topic all that much, so let me know if we want to go off.
Okay.
I know that there have been problems with volunteers, not the volunteers themselves, but the problem is that if you have a community and you pay moderators, and then you also have volunteers that are moderating, that there's a legal issue there. And that's as far as my vague question gets. It's just an idea that popped in my head. How do you handle that, or do you have that in your community or anything like that?
Yeah, that's a really good flag to raise. I think, you know, community conversations often center around recruit volunteers to do this, that, and the other for you. And it's kind of, in many ways, it's annoying because these people want to do these roles and they want to do it for free. And you want them to do it, and it's a win-win for everybody. But you're right, there are legal considerations for sure. And I'm not a legal expert, so do not take this as legal advice. But I think there are some sort of general principles you can follow to reduce the risk. Like as you mentioned, it's really important that you don't have volunteers doing the same work or even similar work as somebody who's paid. And then I think just in general, trying to make sure that any sort of volunteer role it's either like a clearly defined role that they carry out and they like sign a contract and you give them some sort of compensation. It doesn't necessarily have to be payment, but something tangible that it's like in the contract that they get in return for what they're doing. Or you take a very sort of organic approach and you incentivize people through badges and thank you messages, but you never really give them a specific task that they have to do. It's like, these are all the ways that you can participate in the community. We would love for you to do some of them whenever you want to, if you want to, how you want to. So it's always, you know, they're doing it based on their own initiative versus an ask that you've made of them.
That's awesome. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think so. I totally agree, Claire. I think it's really important to have that clear delineation between what a paid moderator does and what a volunteer moderator or moderator-like person is doing. But that doesn't mean to say that you couldn't have both groups sign some sort of agreement, or like make sure that you do have really clear sort of terms of use, or just like community sort of like rules of engagement. Yeah, you definitely want to make sure that those lines don't get crossed, just to keep everybody happy, for sure. Also, Tina, yes, take a group photo. I did my hair this morning, so I'm kidding.
We're all nice to go. You guys, 1, 2, 3. Oh, do it again. 1, 2, 3. Thank you, Piper. Thanks, everyone.
Nice, thanks.
Claire.
Yes.
I'm conscious that people have to schedule for their next meeting, so I usually like to end like a minute too early before the hour. Any last questions, maybe?
Yeah, we have like 5 minutes left. It depends on the question. I think some questions easily squeeze into 1 minute, and then others could go for half an hour. So does anybody have any last questions or ideas that came to them through this conversation, or things that you've done that you want to share? All right. Well, we can wrap up then. Thank you so much to everybody for coming, participating. This was a really good discussion. I always love it when lots of people speak up. I feel like we have much better discussions that way, and this has been a really great group. So thank you, all of you, and thank you, Judy, for bringing your expertise, and everybody else who shared their questions and ideas. Yeah, great discussion. Hope to see some of you again next month.
Thanks. Sure, awesome. Y'all take good care.
See you next month.
Thank you. Thanks so much for hosting, everybody.
Everyone.